Alrighty guys, so here is our second lesson of Unit 1, Elements of Life. And I just kind of put this meme up here because as biologists, we are very focused on carbon. Carbon is super important because if you look, it is one of the most abundant elements in your body. And then also, sorry, let me see if I can get this to go to the next slide. There we go. So we are carbon-based life forms. That is because all of our biomolecules are made usually of either chains of carbon or rings of carbon. So in these diagrams, these are actually some models of glucose, and what you can see is everywhere you don't have an atom written, it's actually carbon. And we don't really write the atom of carbon because we assume it's there because otherwise it would just take forever to write or draw things. And yes, so just wanted to point out that we did talk in class about how carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen are in every biomolecule. We also focused on nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur, and we're going to focus on those because the other things here, calcium, potassium, sodium, chlorine, and magnesium, tend to exist as ions, so they don't really exist with the rest like as part of the other biomolecules for the most part. I'm not saying it never happens, but for the most part. And then just remember there are 4 different biomolecules. You should have learned this in freshman biology. Those biomolecules are nucleic acids, then carbohydrates, fats, otherwise known as lipids, and proteins. And we're going to be talking about each of those in a separate lesson in the rest of the unit. So all biomolecules contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So here we have 4 different examples. We have a carbohydrate, which is glucose. Notice it's got a carbon base to it. Forms a ring structure. Then to the right of that, we have a protein. Glycine is an amino acid or a basic like a subunit of a protein. Notice it also has a carbon kind of base to it. In the larger amino acids, you can sometimes see a little more variation. Then lipids, like what you see in the middle, this is a fatty acid. Notice it also has a carbon kind of central carbon core, and then the nucleic acid on the bottom, that is an ATP nucleotide, and notice it also has a kind of carbon core as well. Then notice we have hydrogen in each of these molecules, and then we also have oxygen in each of these molecules. You may have noticed that the protein, so the amino acid, and the nucleic acid have nitrogen, and then the nucleic acid has phosphorus, and we're going to talk about each of those in a little bit. Speaking of which, here we are. Let's talk about the other elements that I mentioned in class and that I focused on a previous slide. So sulfur is not a large part of the body's mass by volume, but it has a very big role. So there is a specific amino acid called cysteine that has a sulfur atom in it, and that's this sulfur atom here. That sulfur atom is capable of forming a covalent bond with the sulfur atom in another cysteine molecule. So here we see 2 cysteines that are joined together by that disulfide bond right there. And then we also see that here we have some disulfide bonds in between cysteines in a larger protein, and those disulfide bonds, since they're covalent bonds, they're stronger than hydrogen bonds, and they help to stabilize the 3D shape of a protein a lot better than the relatively weaker hydrogen bonds. Phosphorus is found in not only nucleic acids, it's actually found in a specific molecule called a phospholipid, but phosphorus is mostly found in the form of a phosphate ion, which is this guy up here. So it's a phosphorus surrounded by 4 different oxygens, and it does have a charge to it. I may have gotten that charge wrong. I would have to look that up. But it is a polyatomic ion, meaning it doesn't really get separated by chemical reactions, and it kind of acts as a unit. So you'll see phosphates get added onto molecules and phosphates get taken off of molecules. So like I said, we find phosphate groups in phospholipids, which is a type of lipid that's very important for the cell membrane, and we also find them in nucleic acids. So this is going to be right here an ATP. And ATP is especially going to use phosphates as a very important part of the molecule. And you'll notice ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, has those 3 phosphate groups. And hopefully you remember ATP, all about the energy. And so when we talk about energy, it's going to become very important. And then finally, nitrogen is found in 2 different types of biomolecules. It's found in proteins. So this diagram right here is showing you the generic structure of every amino acid. So every amino acid has a central carbon. It's going to have a hydrogen coming off the top of that. It's going to have an amine group, which you'll see has nitrogen, and it has a carboxyl group and a variable group. What I wanted to point out is the fact that that amine group, which is in every single amino acid, is a nitrogen-based group. Then you also have in nucleic acids the nitrogenous bases, which are pictured here. So here we have thymine and uracil, and we have cytosine and guanine, which each have a number of nitrogens in them. And then this is also important because nitrogen is another electronegative atom, similar to oxygen, though not as strong. And so when it's in a bond with another atom that's not very electronegative, like hydrogen, then it can form these polar covalent bonds, which means that these nitrogen-based groups can end up forming hydrogen bonds. So the hydrogen bonds that actually hold DNA together are between nitrogen-bearing groups in the nitrogenous bases. And that's what I'm circling here. So nitrogen is very important for the 3D structure of DNA and RNA. And that's all she wrote for this lesson. We've got another short lesson coming up. So hopefully that wasn't too painful.